Hello, welcome to the Squarebase Show with your hosts, Rob and Val, and in this very exciting video, we're going to be looking at the entire new layout of the old world.
We got a match play fight coming up!
There's going to be some big points made in this video.
But who will achieve the victory point?
Yeah,
and when will it be awarded?
Mission?
Our special mission is to thumbs up or thumbs down this. This is huge, Rob.
This is huge.
This is huge.
So to give everyone context of what we're going to be talking about, Games Workshop has released a match play guide for Warhammer the Old World. Now, we've obviously fully read through this, and we are very, very excited about this. You're going to get 6 new missions, which is fun. A bunch of secondary objectives. Well, technically 9 missions.
I'm going to say 9. I'm going to say 9. I'm going to say it might be controversial, but I'm going to say 9. Continuing.
Technically 9 missions. A bunch of secondary objectives, which I think are both thematic and engaging, which is fun. Then, in addition, we've got secret missions. We've got new guidance on scoring and terrain, some of which we're probably going to ignore. And there is more inside this book than we are going to cover. There is guidance on how to run a team event, on how to run an event, on small little minutiae of what you may or may not want, which we're not going to cover today because really that's really content only needed for TOs. What we're going to cover today is stuff that's going to affect either your regular game events that you're going to have like, you know, at the weekend, or even your normal club games. But I gotta say, this feels really exciting, especially in conjunction with whatever FAQ we've got coming up, which we're going to cover. And I know that's going to be very exciting as well. But I got to straight from the bat, Val, how do you feel about this going in so far? Because I think before, is it fair to say you were a bit lukewarm?
I was lukewarm. I mean, there were some pretty definitive rumors a long time ago. We're talking back in 2024, October of 2024, Rob?
Beautiful time.
If only we knew. If only we knew how good we had it. But back in those days, there were some rumors floating around the ether, and I wasn't too excited, Rob. I was a little the stuff that I had heard about didn't sound very enticing. And I am pleased to say that after being as prepared as I've perhaps ever been for a review here on Squarebase, I am actually feeling a little bullish on this. And I would also point out that we're probably not going to touch on it because I think it's a bit. It could be a whole episode. Actually, let's say it's maybe a 10. But the first 2 sections are basically about victory and defeat. And also why you play match play games or how you should comport yourself in match play games. And I thought it does. I mean, there's a few cringy choices of words, but more or less.
Yeah, there are.
More or less, though, I think the sentiments are quite good and a little bit advanced about how they view, playing in a tournament. So I would love for us to maybe come back, when things are really hot and slow, maybe in August, and maybe we could look at how they actually describe a match play environment and how to treat your opponents, etc.
For sure. Like, I know a really simple way of describing how to play at an event is don't be a dick. But, but the problem is people need guidance on those elements for some reason. And it does seem to have been something that's been standardized across actually all the Games Workshop systems. Several of the game systems now, it almost feels like a mandate from on top where they've been like, you need to give people guidance on how to run events and play in events. Every game system's getting this book now, which I think is good.
Well, SDS games. I don't know studio games.
Recently, Age of Sigmar, as an example, Age of Sigmar got a free PDF, which was just how to run an event, even including minutiae stuff like how to provide food. Like, it wasn't quite like, here's how to make like a beef stroganoff, but it was like, you should.
I want to read that.
Yeah. So I think there's been like a kind of like guidance, like, hey, you need to give the community tools to be able to either run events, play in events, or, give them some guidance. And I think that's really good because actually it's been the job of content creators like us for a long time to be able to provide that. And actually it should be coming from the company and players. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and players and tournament organizers, prominent players, got the guys who do the coaching, all that kind of stuff. Like they have really defined how to play. I think competitive 40K, not 40K, but competitive Warhammer to me, in fact, all Warhammer is a collaborative game. You have to be collaborative. And they underscore that. But I just want to say this. I have never read in a Games Workshop publication that you should roll your dice where your opponent can see them, which Again, maybe to some goes without saying, but not necessarily, So there's just stuff like that I thought was cool. So, but that's all beside the point. We weren't going to talk about it. What are we talking about, Rob?
Okay, well, first thing we're going to talk about, so that's like several of the pages inside the book, but again, we're not going to touch on those, maybe do it in the future. First thing we're going to look at is army composition rules, and this is exactly what we thought it was going to be. In fact, as we discussed and covered and correctly talked about, literally in January, there was a Throne of Skulls event at Warhammer World to celebrate the first year of the Old World, and they used these army composition rules. Now, what's really important about this is there are 3 formats here. This is not one single format, and the first format is just the regular format we already use, Open War. And then there are 2 other defined formats, Grand Melee and Combined Arms. So shall I go through those, or do you want to say anything about that so far?
Just that I had seen the Combined Arms rumored, but I believe the only one that has actually been used was the Grand Melee, if I'm not mistaken. So I haven't seen Combined Arms in the wild before.
No, but we have seen Grand Melee in the.
We did see Grand Melee. It wasn't called Grand Melee, but they did use this 100% at just as Rob described. Yes.
Okay, so the first one, Grand Melee. If you're writing army lists under that format, that would mean you cannot spend more than 25% of your army's total points value on a single character or unit. I think obviously the impactful element here is your Uber dragons. So your Chaos Lord and Dragon, your Wood Elf Dragon. That is where you're going to be hit there.
I don't think the sort of somewhat underrated, but maybe not, is or unit.
Correct. Or unit, like having a unit that's over 500 points. I guess at this stage, and many times when comp has been discussed over the past year and a half, people have brought up what defines a unit. Is a unit the unit? Do I add a character in? Does that now become a unit? Obviously not. But like it's a healthy conversation for sure. So yeah, unit as well. So how do you feel about that? Something we knew was coming.
So it's very conservative, right? So I don't know how much it moves the meta aside from maybe a Chaos Lord on Dragon. Like just again, this is not factoring for what we don't know about the FAQ around,
correct,
which we actually know basically nothing about. We have no confirmed rumors about it. So that the 500 points isn't gonna be a massive impact. It basically hits like a handful of things, two massive issues in the meta right now. Of course, the Chaos Lord on Dragon and the Goblin Shaman on Arachnarok. So those 2 things are heavily impacted.
Yeah, it's actually a point I really want to talk about that. Yeah, well, just terrible to use. So I agree with you. The FAQ will probably do more to rebalance the position of the game, but I also think it's sensible to have generally a points cap on unit size in a game.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it. I think that's super good. I really do. And obviously, also they're not going to impact the stuff they're releasing. They've just released a dragon that's 485 points. They want you to take it. So,
And as we talked when we talked about this in January, as we said, if this number was 20%, that's a big deal. That's a Joe Biden big deal. This, however, is kind of just more like loosey goosey guide rails, I would say.
So the next one is probably more impactful for a lot of armies. Is your army may include any number of level 1 or 2 wizards. Wizards may only include up to 1 level 3 per 1,000 points, so 2 in a 2,000 point army, and 1 level 4 per 2,000 points. An absolutely massive deal. Now this is a needle shift on how the game plays.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, this is, I think, very gentle. And the reason I say that is in a lot of cases, you're going to have a combat lord or you're going to have your lord beat stick guy and you're going to have your level 4 wizard guy. There are a lot of armies, though, that can bring tons of level 4s. I'm looking at you, Orcs and Goblins, looking at you, Empire. There's probably another one that's escaping my mind.
Warriors.
And those are going to be capped. So that's again not an awful restriction, and you can still bring level 3s, and it kind of carves out a place for a level 3 as well. If anything, though, this does enshrine the mandatory nature of a level 4 at this point, because there will be only 1 level 4, and otherwise, it's just uncontested after that. So, yeah.
Exactly. And if we do see any changes to Magic, maybe this will really change up as well. But I think generally, I'm really pro this. I think this is good. Very, very cool. Now that's actually just the Grand Melee. Obviously, I think me and you are we're gonna advocate very soon for using both of these two things in conjunction.
Yeah, I think so.
But I would say this is good. I think this is exactly what we were expecting. But I'm really happy with this.
Yeah, it's again, it's not wildly aggressive. It does add some like it adds some economy of choice. I am never mad when choices become harder to make, right? Like that means you are making a decision. It means there's opportunity cost if you want to if when you're writing your list, you can't just take everything. I think that is fantastic. So yes, I'm all for it.
So the next one, combined arms, may be very familiar to you. Effectively, what it says, and this is the important part, unless a unit or character is already restricted in some way by an army composition list you are using. Now, that's really, really important because it kind of, in some cases, means that you're going to be able to have more of something than you normally would be able to. So unless you have a restriction already, then you can only have up to 3 of the same character, up to 4 of the same core unit, up to 3 of the same special unit, and up to 2 of the same rare or mercenary unit. Now, I think this is great. I think, we initially introduced like the rule of 3, but really, really early, and we had that conversation. I think now, unless otherwise stated, really opens up a little bit more list variety and also follows more the intent direction of what the rules designers have decided. They want Empire to be able to take like 6 cannons as an example. Like it's what they want. So it's how they've written the book. So it would, and also like, with Nolan and other stuff, we want the armies to look thematic, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the unless otherwise restricted. So like we, as you mentioned, like out of the gates, we went with rule of 3 for most stuff and 0 to 6 for core. And I think that was a great place. It was adopted by almost entirely by folks out there, which is great. We also said no allies, and we allowed mercenaries. Stay tuned. So
Not to me.
What do you mean not to you?
don't stay tuned to me on the conversation of allies. I'm like, no, thank you.
What I mean is that is exactly what all of these say in the future. The thing here that jumps out at me is that 0 to 4 limit to core is harsh to some armies, specifically some Legends ones, Renegades pop out to me, but also even things like Orcs and Goblins. When you have unit sheets like because I only said this because it was a big objection from players when we first did the limits. But like the boys unit card, for example, is actually like 5 different units in there.
Yeah.
Also, what's not super clear, I don't think here, is what happens if a unit can be made core. So does that count? Like, say, if it's a special unit that can move to core, does that mean you can have 3 of it in special and 1 of it in core? I think so. That's the way I would rule it.
Would you? Because it applies to special units. It's a special unit that's moved to core. I guess we're calling it now a core unit. I guess, or is it a special unit in core? I guess that's a great conversation.
But I mean,
someone at home like that doesn't sound like a great conversation. That seems awful.
That's my favorite kind of awful combo for Robbo. Number 1 top choice for me. Regardless, however that breaks out, we can figure that out. I would say in general, this doesn't do a ton because it's very similar to how we've been playing, just a little tighter on core. For them, Games Workshop did just blanket rule of 3 at all their events, unless otherwise restricted. Core units in general are not otherwise restricted. I think in my last 2 or 3 events, I adopted that so that I don't think many people have taken much advantage of it, but the unless otherwise restricted has been used. I thought it was a bit dumb, if only because like that means that you can be restricted above that limit. And so like that kind of felt a bit silly. But I think because it's 0 to 4, 0 to 3, 0 to 2, that would make everything for the most part otherwise restricted lower, except for the examples that you gave, things like cannons.
Right. So
which is fine.
I don't spend too much longer on this because I want to get all to the juicy stuff. And this is
pretty juicy though, Rob.
Yeah.
How do you
I agree with you. I think it is juicy, but once it's there, it's like cool. I immediately open my list right in apps, and then I go there. Like,
what's the number one shift like in your mentality on like, especially that combined arms part? The Wizard is big for you.
The Wizards is big for me.
The combined arms part, does it change anything that you write? I don't know that it does.
Not really. I generally don't tend to spam. I don't generally think spam stuff works overtly well in the old world because you normally need to deal with more than one threat. You sure, you need to deal with a big monster maybe or something high in toughness, but maybe a lot of wounds or something that's fast. Or in the future, with objectives and other things on the board, maybe I need to deal with these like small little controlling units as well. So there's actually a lot of, you generally need to multi-tool in an army list anyway.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really change it for me. The Wizards thing to me feels pretty big.
The Wizards thing is fairly big. There's one thing I wanted to have a look here out. This is interesting, Rob. Note that these limitations do not apply to named characters, and that under Grand Melee Army composition rules. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The thing I want to say there is that is a way to get more than one level 4 in. Looking at you, Miao Yang. So
just to re-clarify, there is a small italics element under here, and it talks about the restrictions here not applying to named characters. So realistically, what Val is saying is that if you have a level 4 wizard, you could also have another level 4 wizard, which maybe uniquely makes Cathay and maybe a couple of other armies able to have 2 level 4s over every other army in the game. I personally think that we can just ignore those italics and you can just treat them like everything else. You can have 1 level 4 and that's it. And that's at least what I'll be writing in my packs. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad one, but also like even in my head, what that applies to is like everyone was like Miao Yang's 485. What a coincidence, below 500 points. However, that clearly wasn't a factor because this doesn't apply to her anyway. She could have been 700 points and still be allowed to be taken. So, and that applies to other named characters too, of course. But just something interesting to call out, and whether or not TOs use the italicized. It'll probably be months before any normal Warhammer players read these words, because as we all know, anything in italics is impossible for anyone to read. So we probably won't have to worry about this for a while, Rob.
Perfect. Right, let's get on to we're not yet at the fun. We're so close. I'm so sorry. We get there, I promise. There's some great stuff here that I'm really excited to cover, and the minutia sucks. So the next thing to talk about is the victory points. So this is basically the same with a few subtle changes. But if this is your first time kind of really tuning in and trying to understand, and you're able to go through that army composition conversation, congratulations. So you score victory points in order to win the game. And actually, even how that is tracked has been changed, at least in Games Workshop's format. So that's worth talking about. So you score victory points for killing stuff or stuff running away. We'll talk about that in a moment. And you also score it for either your secondary objectives or for your secret missions. Those are the simple ways to score points, and it's accumulative. So the first and most important rule, probably in the old world, is dead or fled. The most usual way to win victory points is by destroying routing or significantly reducing fight strength of enemy units.
Did you catch the change here, bud?
I did, bud. But I'm going to go through all of it. So each enemy unit that has been destroyed or that has fled off the battlefield is worth a number of victory points equal to 100% of its cost. Fine. So a unit's worth 200 points, you kill it, you get 200 points. Each enemy unit that is fleeing at the end of the battle is worth a number of victory points equal to 50% of its points cost, rounding fractions up. So again, super simple. If it's fleeing, you get 50%. That's why undead are great, because they don't flee. Each enemy unit that has been reduced to 25% of starting unit strength or less at the end of the battle, or if its unit strength is equal to its starting wounds to 25% of its starting wounds or less at the end of the battle, is worth a number of victory points equal up to 50% of its points, rounding fractions up. Just to be clear, I want to make sure I reread this in full again for everyone. Each enemy unit that has been reduced to 25% of its starting unit strength or less at the end of the battle, or if its unit strength is equal to its starting wounds to 25% of its starting wounds or less at the end of the battle, is worth the number of victory points equal up to 50% of its points cost, rounding up. So how do you feel about that change?
I think that's a pretty awesome change. So this used to be 25%, got you 25% of the unit. That's the way it is in the core rule book. And if I'm not mistaken, this
you didn't get any points if you took a monster down to 1 wound.
Exactly.
But now you do.
Now you do. So this is a big fix. You're getting more for doing significant damage to a unit. And you are able to get points for partially killed characters and monsters. Fantastic. This is great. This should be errated to the core rulebook. We should not be paying $30 for this. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great change. Really good immediate effect in any event I run. I think that's excellent. Immediate effect in any game I play. King is dead is the next rule. If the enemy general is slain, as fled off the battlefield, is fleeing when the game ends, you get a bonus of 100 victory points.
Same as always. Yeah,
but we love that. Also, just point out that that little 25% might significantly change the meta. Maybe not in your regular casual games, but maybe actually in the kind of grand scheme of things. We'll have to talk about that maybe later, another time.
So the other thing too is, although it's not explicit here, what I on the dead or fled, it says each enemy unit, right? So that to me says that if it meets both conditions, it meets both conditions. So if you've killed a unit down to 25% and it's fleeing, you get 100% of it. And that's the way traditionally in fantasy it worked. If it was fleeing or dead, you got 100% of the victory points for it. So that's I think the way it's supposed to be.
Okay, yeah, great. Right, so Trophies of War is the next one. You earn a bonus 50 victory points for every enemy standard claimed as a trophy, as described on page 200 of the book. Additionally, if the enemy battle standard bearer is slain, it's fed off the battlefield, or it's fleeing when the game ends, you score another bonus of 50 victory points.
Nice.
So it's quite interesting because 50 victory points for a banner and 50 victory points for a BSB, both of which you see very little of because people don't really want to give up those points. You see them sometimes, but you don't see them all the time. Is interesting in its amount when we start looking at secret missions and the secondary objectives. That is probably, and same as killing the general, both of those are probably under what is the secondary objectives are going to be worth when you start totaling them up. So it's interesting. They're nice add-ons versus necessarily the main point. What I'm trying to say is take a banner if you want to take a banner. Like the 50 points, I don't think is going to cost you the game. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think kind of like flaming attacks right now, the reason you don't see standard bearers and BSBs is that they're mostly downside. You know what I mean? So like if there was, for example, through better combat res and all that kind of stuff, more reason to care about your static res, then yeah, I think you're going to see more standards. You're going to see more standards in units. And if the BSB, unless you're undead, is kind of marginal in what it lets you do, unless being able to pass break tests is more impactful and relevant because combat is less decisive. That'd be good.
Next up, we got special features. So if a scenario special specifies that a special feature must be included, the player that controls it at the end of the battle will score victory points as described on special features. And you got the break point, which is a fascinating potential addition here, where if a break point is being used as game end condition, a player breaks the army, as described at page 18, will win a bonus of 500 victory points. Probably we're never going to advocate for using a break point game system.
Thank goodness.
But it is interesting to maybe not have it as an end game condition and instead have it as
a breakpoint. Yeah.
Have it as because now it's got a points value. You can just say, cool, you've also broke the enemy. So that's 500 points for you. Also, that would, if you did include it, I'm not advocating to include it straight away, but if you were to run a breakpoint event, you then maybe would really change army composition. Potentially,
yeah. I think mostly that would impact like if MSU became a thing, but we can talk about why or why not. That actually is an interesting idea. In fact, Capital City Bloodbath, one of my favorite rules packs, did exactly that with the rulebook breakpoint version of the mission. So like just applying this to any old mission sounds interesting, and we can talk about even it as an end of game condition. I don't know if it's that crazy, especially when we talk about how like objectives are scored. And how there's like ongoing points being scored at all times. It could be interesting, bud.
So next up, we're going to be talking about the new way that Games Workshop are covering scoring and tiebreakers. So the scoring part is very important. So they now have like a 7-section way in which you record your result. So a draw is obviously a draw. And then you can either have a crushing defeat, a resounding defeat, or a marginal defeat. And then on the other side of that, obviously a marginal victory, a resounding victory, and a crushing victory. And the way you can determine what they look like, and what I really like, is depending on the points value that you're playing. So they have stratified this, although it is frustrating, the actual brackets. And shout out to Toby. So let me explain this and explain the problem with the bracketing.
May I just provide one point of context? So if any of you have ever heard of the 20-0 scoring system, we use it in all of our events. It's was popularized by ETC in many tournaments over the years and all sorts of game systems. 20-0 came from this. Okay, this is literally where it came from. If you go to the other side, this is a points differential. So Games Workshop would call a crushing victory, meaning that you won by X amount of points. Tournaments realize what Rob is about to talk about.
Yes. So if you're playing our normal 2,000 point game, and this is big because this is different to what it currently is, you need to now be or have more kill points or a bigger differential of 300 points, where previously it was 100 points. Now, this is a big deal because this is generally just going to result in more draws. Maybe significantly more draws. And that's why shout out to Toby. When we first started running the first events at the TSN, we took all the results in over the first 3, because we ran 3 weekends of events back to back that were sold out. And then we took all the data and then we created a differential system based on that information where we got the largest spread of results that we could get. I think we took getting 20-0s from like 48% down to like 16% of the kind of total results. And that was a 100-point victory and then 150-point steps. Now, I would like your first thoughts. What do you think of now a victory now being at least 300 points?
So I don't think I would use this. I think this is an example of the game moved past this. This is something literally from their grand tournaments 20 years ago, right? So and the concept of this is fantastic. That's why all like very serious, especially battle points are a big deal. Like if you're not doing win-loss, which we're going to talk to you about, if you're doing a battle point tournament, so you're ranked in the end of the day by how many of those tournament points you get. So maximum score you can get is 6. Often you're getting 3. You're going to have a leaderboard that's going to be a lot of people tied at the top. So that's what began to realize. And also, the stratification is just kind of, it's insane. It doesn't exist. So you get a very mushy result. You don't feel like it's easy to identify who really won. Right. So that's why we, instead of doing 20-0, instead of doing 6-0, that's what this system is. You can imagine we just multiply that by 4. You gross it up, you scale it up. That gives you more granular detail into the scoring, and it makes it a little easier to rank people. That's the only reason why 20-0 exists versus this. This looks perhaps a little neater on a page. It's not so stratified. You could, so that's it.
I would say though that I obviously agree with everything you're saying. I don't hate the concept of having a conversation that the first step of a win starts at 300. Now that's
that?
I don't know if I like that, but it's different. It's a conversation, right? And that's what this entire book is about. Why I'm so excited about it. And I genuinely, I messaged you last night. I was like, this is it. I'm actually really happy. I think they've put the work in. And we're really going through the boring stuff right now. I need to really emphasize because there's some really great stuff in here. But I quite like that. I hate that to win, I need 300 points. To get to the next step is like a 450 point increase. And then the next step is like 650. And that breaks my brain. I'm a little concerned about that.
A minor victory is 300. Over 300 points. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, to move into the next victory point is an additional 450 points.
Yes, which is what, a reasonable victory? I can't remember. I already can't. You know what I'd love? I'd love for us to use the terms like marginal. I'm a hamster. I can't hold them in my mind. That's but whatever those terms are great. But we could have those over multiple VP bands. So like to us, a crushing victory is anywhere between a 300, whatever it is. Anyway,
But
besides the point, we're getting into minutiae here. I just think the tournament scene has evolved. What was a good idea? This is a good idea. If you run an event starting with this, good, do it. I think having more granular detail in how the differences, what those actual scores are, I think is also good. So I think we can do both.
And I really genuinely like the conversation. We'll do it in another show. Maybe we'll do it as Patreon, just you and me. I like the concept. Maybe we do 300 points as your first bracket. That's huge. That would change the game significantly. It would make chaff more important. I think there's a lot of I think there's a bunch of good advocacy for it. And you got any thoughts, obviously, in the comments below as well. I think that's a really interesting place to be.
Yeah. I will say, I know you're trying not to get into it, but I can't resist. I think the bigger that draw gap is, I think the more emphasis you put on points denial.
Maybe, but then my brain was then like, cool, I'm much more interested in chaff now, because like I can give up maybe up to 300 points of chaff to control the board state. If I just lose a war machine, like you and me, turn one, I blow up my war machine, I'm like, oh, cool, I've win. I can sit in a corner now. Like I don't need, like, there's a bit more variance there available. And I agree with you. Maybe there's a focus, but points denial is already a good strategy. It doesn't change that, really, to be honest. But
so we've already got 2 future episodes booked now, based off of this. Thanks, Games Work. I can't remember who said it, but I don't think we say thank you enough. Thank you, Games Workshop. I mean, we've been in their office now for hours, and we haven't said thank you once, and that's disrespectful.
To be clear, we don't have a relationship or anything signed with Games Workshop. That's just to downplay rumors, which are very rampant. But let's hurry up because I want to make sure we get through everything. Right. So one other thing that they do say on here is they describe the way that they would run an event where they would use this system as the first system. So what normally happens in events, although not all old world events, is you use a win-loss draw system, and then the differential is the second tiebreaker. So, if you win 5 games, you're like no one else does, you're the winner of the event. If 2 people win 5 games, you see who got the biggest points differential cumulatively over the 5 games. They're saying just use the points differential first, which is actually, I think, not sensible and seems a little odd. So I don't run that system.
Yeah, I would say that, well, back in the day, this was a very Atlantic-driven conversation. I think in 40K, I don't know how AOS ever did it. I don't know if they've always been just all win-loss.
No, but we did an entire 2 seasons of differential.
Of battle points. So like the way this is usually referred to as is like win-loss draw, and then what they call tournament points is usually called battle points. So that's the amount of points you earn from like actually winning the mission. And then they have a third, which is victory points, which is the actual points you scored in the mission. So what we're saying is, I think it's very good to do, and I agree with Rob here, you do win-loss draw at the beginning. So if you're in a tournament where everyone, there's enough rounds to get to one person who could potentially be undefeated, I believe winning the battle, regardless of if it's a small win or otherwise, is a win. And that's better than blowing out 4 opponents and losing against 1 opponent, right? So that's essentially the philosophical difference there. However, if there were 2 undefeated, like not undefeated, but perfect 5-0 players, let's say in a tournament, then we would go to how many victory points in total did they score? How many battle points did they get? In this case, it's called tournament points, I think. And then if that was tied, say they both had, it was a perfect 24 versus 24 in this system, then they would go to how many victory points did they score? And then after that, I believe it's secondaries.
Yes, absolutely. But we're going to ignore all that and let's start getting into juicy stuff. Okay. Oh, no. One last boring thing. Come on, I promise it's going to get good. Okay, so...
What are you talking about, Rob? You realize that we're nerds and we talk to other nerds. Like everyone, right now, people are glued to their screen.
I just want to talk about the other stuff. Right, so...
We got more than an hour left, Rob. Let's go.
So the first thing here, first turn, the only important thing to say is that Games Workshop have codified and doubled down on the idea that when you deploy, including scouts, then you add 1 to your roll. So like if I have scouts, the concept of being more prepared for a battle than my opponent and deploying scouts, I will now be less able to win the roll for the first turn because my opponent will get +1. If we both have scouts, then it depends on who has however many. But if I have scouts, I'm now at a detriment in the deployment steps versus my opponent.
Yes, and I think that's kind of lame also. However, Rob, there is a secret awesome change in this first turn thing. Did you catch it?
No, tell me.
Once deployment is complete, the winner of the roll-off chooses who takes the first turn.
Yes, which is
currently in the rule book, the winner of the roll-off has to take the first turn. You now have the option, and by the way, because there's secondaries and other things to do, it may matter whether or not you're going first or second, whether or not you want the opportunity to move first or the opportunity to move last. So that's pretty cool.
Great. Yes, that's, I mean, huge, in fact. Absolutely huge. Game-changing. This is a massive moment.
Despite my attempts personally to modify this ruling in the square-based FAQ, because I think it kills scouts, or at least it hurts scouts, it seems like the world at large has just accepted this for some reason, and now it's codified. So I will say that the square-based FAQ will just accept reality and say that scouts suck. That's how I would approach it, although Rob has 50% of the square-based FAQ, so he can veto me too.
That sounds fine. I don't argue against this. But the other thing's incredible. The choice to go first now, that's a big deal. That's a really, really big deal. So that's a huge change to the game as well. Okay, finally. Oh no, I keep forgetting this boring bits. Anyway,
we can talk very quickly about this. High level.
They talk about terrain. They say you should scatter terrain. All of that's dumb. We should use maps. That's it.
Maps. Yes. We'll continue to use the TPS, bringing honor to TPS lovers everywhere. The way they suggest you place terrain there, by the way, is one, you roll off, the winner places all of the terrain.
Hate that.
So, and you're not allowed to place it in the center, which I'm not as opposed to anymore for reasons we'll describe. However, I'm going to let you describe in the comments why it might be bad to have your opponent place all of the terrain.
I'd also like to let everyone know that with the new missions, there will be the TPS, which is the terrain picking system, which is either a free downloadable online thing that we do on the honestwargamer.com on the Squarebase thing, Squarebase section, or maybe Squarebase.com will go to it. One of those two things.
We'll sort it out. Or link in the comments.
We'll also do a video about it, so you'll be able to see. But not only will that be free, downloadable, produced by us, really high quality graphics, but in addition, it'll be available to be cards that you'll be able to pick up as well, in conjunction with a card set for the secret missions and stuff like that as well. So, which should be available literally next week to order.
Wow, awesome.
Good. So we got that. Don't even know what they are yet, but you can get some cards for it. Okay, so the big exciting news, secondary objectives.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. All right, I'm so excited about this. Right, during the course of a match play event, an organizer may choose to apply one or more secondary objectives to any scenario. So to be clear, when you go on the scenarios, which we'll cover in a moment, they'll say which secondary objectives they think you can apply, and you get the choice. You can say you can have this or this or this, or you can have all of them, which is great. Yeah,
you could choose chaos, Rob.
I'm choosing chaos, and you can have all of these, which is good. And all of the secondary objectives award you either victory points at the end of the game, or progressive victory points, or if you're doing secret missions, when you complete the secret mission. So there's like quite a lot of variance there in when and where you can score points and what they're worth.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first secondary objective that's available in some missions, if you choose, I'd like to talk about that for a moment, but no, we'll do it at the end if we get time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I like that you can choose.
What?
I love that you're like, cool, I've got a mission, fine. I'd like to add something on, one thing. Cool, I'm going to add a second thing on because of the theme. I have said this multiple times, when a mission isn't really describing a battle, and it's just like, there are some places, there is some terrain, go away. I think it lacks what I'm aiming for. I like the old world because it has story and character and jewels, and everything is like a played out story on the tabletop. Adding theme in these objectives is great. That's what I like.
Yeah.
So the first,
all of these provide a context for the objective. For example, the first one is baggage trains. It's a form of just a terrain objective. But it's not that. It's a baggage train, and I think that's pretty sick. Special features aren't just a point on the map. They're a herdstone. Well, that's a terrible example because you can actually just buy those. Anyway, what Rob is saying, I agree with. I also wasn't initially as pumped about the fact that they didn't just say this mission has this secondary. But you won me over just now, Rob. So okay.
I just like the variance, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
because your replayability, because if this is all we get for a year or 18 months or 2 years, that means
There's a lot here, though.
There's replayability is a lot. Okay, so a baggage train should be represented by a miniature diorama occupying 60 by 100 mil base. Baggage trains are treated as dangerous terrain for the purpose of movement, but are ignored for the purposes of line of sight. Let me tell you how excited I am about, like, you know, someone playing dwarves and they have like a cabbage train of baggage, of cabbages or something.
Cabbage. Yeah, a cabbage train of baggages.
Yeah. Just like, oh no, me cabbages. All right.
Cabbages.
There's actually even a picture, I think, of some
some cool ones.
Kit bash cabbage trains, baggage trains. I'm calling them cabbage trains now. I think the entire old world might run on the cabbage economy. That's what I've decided. Cabbages.
I guess you have to go 5D here. You got to go 5D. You got to make it so that your cabbage train can come off the base because it is difficult terrain. So you need to be able to move on to it. So, but I am glad that they did say, hey, this is a hobby opportunity. You know, like this is a great spot for all of, you know, your unit fillers too. Like this is a great use for unit fillers. You just pop it on 60 by 100 and Bob's your uncle. So, or maybe you go to squarebase.com and you buy some sick things that we have available for you in the near future. That'd be sick too.
That would be sick too. Right, placing baggage trains. Baggage trains are placed after the battlefield has been set up, but before deployment begins. Each player places their baggage train on the battlefield so that it's wholly within the deployment zone and at least 3 inches away from any battlefield edge. Baggage trains are not placed within a terrain feature or any type of straddling low linear obstacles. Once placed on the battlefield, a baggage train cannot move for any reason. Okay. Nice and simple. Controlling a baggage train. A baggage train can be controlled by a single unit that is within 6 inches of it. It has a unit strength of 10 or more, and that is not fleeing and does not succumb to stupidity. If 2 or more eligible units are within 6 inches of the baggage train, the closest unit controls it. However, if 2 or more eligible units are equally close, the baggage train is contested and neither unit controls it. This is actually quite important because there are various ways of controlling stuff over the secondary missions. So in some cases, we are going to get higher unit strengths, being able to supersede lower unit strength units.
I didn't see that. Okay, cool. Yeah.
That works on special features, and I think that also works on objectives as well. So there's a huge advocacy here for more models or higher unit strength, basically. In this case, it's not as important.
The distinction I noticed was that sometimes it's core. I think that's the one that makes objective special.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is neat, Rob. Annoying, but also neat. So it is a little hard to keep that, you know, you'll have to remember that, but neat. I like that there's a distinction there, and it's not necessarily a distinction without a difference. Let's move on.
It's also in your deployment zone, right? So like if your opponent wants it, they got to come get it, right? That's fine.
And it can be within up to 3 inches away from your board edge. So you got lots of room to hide it back there.
Yeah. So destroying a baggage train. A unit with a unit strength of 5 or more can attempt to destroy the baggage train by moving into base contact with it during the remaining move subphase.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, no charging. That's great. I love that. Once a unit is in base contact with the enemy's baggage train, it begins the process of destroying it, shattering wagon wheels, sending camp attendants fleeing to the hills. Oh my God, it's
throwing
so good.
Cabbages over their shoulders.
Stealing the women, folk. It's so good. I'm loving it. Okay. Sending camp attendants fleeing to the hills and putting supplies to the torch. Whilst a unit is in base contact with the enemy's baggage train, it cannot shoot and can only cast spells with a range of combat self. If at the beginning of their next start of turn subphase, the unit is still in base contact with the baggage train, has a unit strength of 5 or more, is not engaging combat is really important. So if you charge me cabbage train, then I charge you, right? Then I can stop you from smashing up me cabbages, which I don't want.
Me cabbages! Yeah.
Right, I don't want. So that's a good way of counteracting it. And it's not fleeing. The baggage is destroyed or removed from the battlefield. And then for victory points, for each baggage train a player controls at the end of the battle, the player wins a bonus 100 VP. So same as killing a general. If a player destroys their opponent's baggage train, they win a bonus of 250 VP. So quite a lot of points for a lot of points for destroying the enemy. Now, there's an argument that there's a win more, right? I run over to your army, I wipe out all your stuff, and then destroying your baggage train, I get more points.
Or you have a little ho hum, hi ho, I'm gonna go eat the cabbage. And there's a bunch of dwarves that just show up from the ground and like smash the baggage train.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe this increases the effectiveness of things
Ambush
like
stuff?
ambushers. Yeah,
Yep,
you just
maybe.
get a little ambusher in and start smashing up the cabbages. I'm furious.
What two things I want to point out? A couple things here in the all of this, by the way, hit in the comments. What are the weird exclusions, conditions that you're picking up in the way the rules are worded? Because that will be important. We're going to need to clarify all this shit. But one, obviously, you don't have to be as big of a unit to destroy something as you do need to control something. Okay, so a unit strength of 5 or more can do it. However, you can only destroy it if you do it in the remaining move subphase. So by moving into base contact with it during its during the remaining
until their next start turn subphase. So you have to survive there for a turn.
Also, random movers can't possibly do that, which is interesting. Just another weird exclusion there. But there's and yes, but so smaller units can do it. They can cause ruckus, but they can't control it, which I think is kind of a neat split. So you can still send your hero on maybe not on probably like a hero on a Pegasus or something, and go like beat up war machines, and like a lot of those things that we used to refer to all the time as war machine hunters, which haven't had a big role so far because war machines haven't been a big dominant meta thing. Well, now they're also baggage train hunters.
Cabbage train hunters.
Cabbage train.
Cabbage train.
All aboard!
All right. So I like this a lot, and like every mission where I can make my players bring cabbage trains, I would. Also, like it's interesting because now like a unit at the back of the board, maybe like a small missile unit, has got like some more effectiveness. Maybe it's not just its output that's important, it's standing near something. Maybe even just a block of infantry that's just going to hold the line. I sometimes, when I have a block and I look across the board and I think it's going to take me ages to get over there. They're not going to fight very well when they get there. What's their job?
They have a job.
Yeah.
They have a job.
They got a job. They're protecting me cabbages.
Like there are like a lot of times we opine like this unit doesn't really have a job. I'd like to take it, or I have to take it. Looking at you, a lot of core options. Well, now they're guarding. They're on cabbage duty now. There's one frame of reference I do want to include here, which is how to evaluate like the impact of these things. So if we look at 250 victory points. Right now, we can just assume there's a baseline of roughly, what are we going to call it? 2,100 points available for any opponent to score. Mm-hmm. So if you were to table your opponent, they have a 2,000 point army, they have a general, you're going to get 2,100 points. So 250 victory points is about a 5%. So about 5% of the value of available points.
The maximum is you hold yours and destroy theirs.
350.
350. So
that's you're getting. So this one objective, is that going to change a massive amount of things? It's not, for example, going to even get you over a draw. Well, I guess you could get past a draw in the Games Workshop scoring system.
You could,
just by holding your own and destroying your opponent and not losing a unit.
Can I tell you why this sings to me? For me, this is exactly the interactions I see almost like, bi-weekly at the TSN Arena when I run events. It's there'll be a couple of people who'll come up to me and they'll be like, Rob, you never know, guess what happened? My Knights charges baggage train. You'll never guess what. They charge me, but the champion form, like it's a storytelling device.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why I play the Old World for sure. And I think that's great. And also it has game effectiveness as well. So big fan. Can't wait. Show me your pictures of your cabbages. Also, let me know what kit bashes you're planning in the future in the comments, please. I'm excited to know. GG Games Workshop. Right, next up, we've got special features. Also, something I'm in love with. Do you want to read through this, or do you want me to just keep rifling away?
I could. Do you want to go line by line, or yeah, why not? All right. So in match play scenarios, a special feature is a terrain feature that represents an important landmark upon the battlefield. This might be a grand statue depicting noble heroes, an arcane monolith erected to channel magical energy, or some other towering edifice of unknown origin. To represent such a landmark, a special feature may be used as a secondary objective. A special feature is a terrain feature measuring no more than 6 inches at its widest point. All special features are impassable terrain over which no line of sight can be drawn. Looking at you, Herdstone, we've answered the question. Awesome. What do we think so far?
Yeah, great. That's good.
Awesome.
Absolutely fine. Another opportunity to kit bash something cool and thematic for my army, or to get someone to produce it for us.
Yeah, or that piece of terrain in your collection that you're like, well, this was kind of useless. Like all those mausoleum bits that people might have or whatever. It's a special feature. Special features are placed when setting up the battlefield, as described in page 16. A special feature must be placed in the center of the battlefield. Once placed, a special feature does not scatter. So that's referring to how they do their terrain deployment. But this also does maybe provide a little insight as to why they have reserved the middle of the table in their terrain rules, even in the past.
Yeah,
so there is space for a special feature.
Yeah, the first terrain pack I ever produced was, sticking to their core rules, which is nothing within 12 inches of the middle, which just create quite a shooting gallery, truth be told. And actually,
or charging gallery for that matter. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and I really do feel like, early edition, just let everyone deploy straight in the middle, move it forward is a great place for the game to be.
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
creating something that you can't move over and that is going to block line of sight is actually super nice. Do real techie stuff. I actually have already spent like a couple of hours last night like laying maps out and having a look at what the board looks like with this as well as the objectives on the board. And actually it's very cool. You can create, if you wanted to as a TO, not that I do, you can create a very blocked center. And actually in conjunction with terrain features that people can bring, like a herdstone and a forest, you could get quite a cluttered board, which giant units might really struggle to move around. So
and also things like there's like, very long lines of infantry that can do a wheel and swing around in a very broad arc will be screwed up if there's always a piece of impassable terrain in the middle. So this does also just limit a lot of line hammer. I think a line hammer was really enabled by the openness in the middle. There was always space in the middle. You weren't in danger of going off the table. Not that it ever really became a massive thing, but nonetheless, it was possible. Now it's even less feasible to be incredibly wide because there's always going to be that impassable there if you're using it. Anyway, controlling a special feature. Ready to move on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
During each start of turn subphase, a special feature could be controlled by a single core unit that's within 6 inches of it, and that has a unit strength of 10 or more, that is not fleeing, and that has not succumbed to stupidity. If 2 or more eligible units are within 6 inches of the special feature, the closest unit controls it. If 2 or more eligible units are equally close to a special feature, the unit with the highest unit strength controls it. However, if 2 or more eligible units, enemy units are equally close to a special feature and both have the same unit strength, this special feature is contested and neither unit controls it. And the victory points are: controlling an important landmark is a significant achievement. You represent this. If either player controls special feature, then you get 200 victory points.
Nice. Yeah, that is awesome. My thing, so a lot of these things are the closest unit controls it. I think this is exactly as it was for the most part in the rule book. My question to you is, if both units are touching it, are they both equally close?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And also one of the things that I really like about this as well is like it really adds in the give ground for by-go nature of like, moving around. Like I do in there, I think at least picture in their minds, they say there's a unit stood taking it, then you charge in and you push them back 2 inches. So now you've got it. That's very cool.
Yes, for baggage trains and for special and for objectives, which we'll see, that definitely applies. For the stuff that like controlling a special feature, like in this situation, you can both just run up to it and touch it, right? So like that's a little bit different, but now
I agree
that I agree because I've often wondered. I feel like that closest thing is like kind of it sounds weird to say this, but feels ambiguous at times. Like, am I closer? Are you closer? And there's ways we can do that with cool things on the table. Anyway, I have lots of ideas. But I think the reason is for exactly what Rob described. Because we have things like Fabigo, we have pushback and give ground. Now they're imagining this push-pull. So we're taking their cool dynamic combat mechanic and they're making it useful in telling the story of winning these objectives. So like getting back to Rob's point of these missions aren't just generating cool ways to play, new game states and like ways to try and figure out how to tech for it, but they're actually creating opportunities for a story where like you're wrestling back and forth to score that objective.
Yeah, which is, and keys in with the core mechanics, right? Which is great. But that's not all, because your special feature also has, I'm going to just immediately say all special features have unusual properties. I think you could probably say that a special feature doesn't if you want to, but if you do say that, you're probably being a coward.
I agree, because it's Yeah, and let's read it, Rob, because or whoever's
Sure.
reading it, let's read it.
Special features are possessed of ever-changing and highly unusual properties. During any start-of-turn subphase in which a unit is determined to be in control of a special feature, the unit's controlling player rolls on the table below to determine a special feature's current unusual property. The controlling unit benefits from the unusual property until the end of the turn. Now, there's a D6 table. The first third, a 1 or a 2, is a tingle in the air. The air around the special feature tingles strangely, and those that stand too close report a funny taste in their mouths. Whilst the unit controls a special feature, it gains magic res 3. Pretty strong.
That's not bad. That is
bad.
a significant rule.
Significant rule. 3 to 4, though, honor thy forebears, filled with a sense of righteous pride by the sight of this special feature. Those that control it will defend it vigorously. Whilst unit controls a special feature, it gains the hatred all enemies special rule.
Which is cool in that first decisive fight for the special feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you are already holding it and someone rolls up on you, then you have the chance of getting 3 to 4 and having hatred in that round of combat, which is pretty sick. But then if that combat continues, suddenly 3 to 4 results in nothing, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, good. It's really strong. And then you might also roll it. So
yeah. But what I'm saying is like suddenly as the combat, if you have like a protracted combat between two units that are wrestling over this objective or the special feature, that combat is less impacted potentially by the special feature as it goes on, because you can't have hatred necessarily all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think it's pretty cool because hatred's the first round of combat. So that's what I'm saying.
And the last third, 5 and 6, special feature fills all who look upon it with courage and despise them to have a greater acts of bravery. Whilst a unit controls this special feature, it gains the unbreakable special rule.
A great thing and worth at least 100 points if you got it in a banner. So perfect.
Absolutely perfect. So what do you think about the special feature generally in the game? It increases the effectiveness of core units. It increases the effectiveness of core units that have a lot of bodies in, which is one of the things that we say the old world needs a little bit more of.
Gives them a job.
Yeah, it gives them a job. Match play book job guide.
Jobs for the core bumpkins. Do you have shoes? No. Yeah. No shoes? Hang out by this cool feature.
So increases that, adds, I think, story to the game, lets you kit bash cool thematic elements to the battlefield, which is great. It gets a 10 out of 10 from me. What are your thoughts?
You pointed out something I did not at all pick up on. The unusual properties table only benefits core units.
Correct.
That's sick.
Yeah. So now you can have no shoes, but hatred against everybody.
Maybe hatred. I mean, you don't even need a priest for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So what do you think of the actual whole special feature section?
I really like it. I don't know if so I know you were saying that maybe we do all of these all of the time. We can talk about that at the end, but I don't know if I want this in every single mission. That's one thing.
I think what it does, because it's 200 VP, right? So, because when we look at the secondary objectives we'll talk about it at the end.
Let's keep going. We'll talk at the end. Yeah.
Okay. So next one is domination. And this is going to be very different to some of the other elements. So this is just table quarters for everyone who needs to know. Control each quarter of the battlefield is determined at the end of the game. To do this, the players add together the unit strength of each of their models that is completely within the quarter, not counting fleeing models. The player has the highest unit strength within a quarter, controls it. For each quarter of the battlefield a player controls, they win a bonus 100 VP. If the unit strength of the models controlling a quarter is more than twice that of the enemy controlling the player, they win an additional 50 VP. If the player controls a quarter uncontested, or they have no unit strength in there, the controlling player wins an additional 100 VP. So domination is a huge points dump available, potentially 800 points for each table quarter. 100 VP for holding a table quarter. 50 VP if you outnumber them, and then if you hold a table quarter uncontested, it's an additional 100 VP. So potentially, what do you think?
So the face I was making there just before the cut was me not believing what Rob just said. So I was being very careful to reread what he clearly just read to us, and that is correct. So now, again, using that measuring stick mentioned before, that's 800 victory points up for grabs. That's a lot of victory points. Like, so now if we have a special feature, we're at 1,000. If we have a baggage train, that's 1,350 available from the secondary objectives. That's significant. That means that you don't just have to kill. Winning secondaries is a big deal. Having units alive at the end of the game to get this, so that means keeping your units alive so that they can control quarters, avoiding combat. Big freaking deal. So wood elves out there, you're feeling sorry for yourselves.
You can get 800 points from dancing around.
Yeah, you're probably not going first because you have a lot of scouts, but you could dance around as long as you stay alive. You hide behind stuff. You just get 800 victory points. I mean, obviously not automatically, but it's something, right? That's very cool.
And if you table your opponent, and also like if you table your opponent, then you're going to get a ton more points, which is like if you table your opponent, you're winning anyway, right? But this is quite interesting because those players or armies that really do, I know for a fact that I clump, I castle, I put all my pieces together, right? So that like if you try to hit me, I'm going to hit you back with everything. Well, now you're only going to take one portion of the board edge, like, and there's more room around the board. So you're only going to take 1/4. Maybe you can move into like a second core. I don't know, but you're less tempted to corner camp because you've got to go from the corner to the other sections of the board, right? And unpack how your army works. Now, in reality, is it too many points? That's a great question, but I really think you got to put it on the table, find out, which is I know what I'm going to do at my event so that people get the opportunity to say, do you know what, maybe it is too many points, but it also might not be. It might drastically change list writing, which is what we've wanted. It might drastically change how we move units around the board. Again,
having one gigantic unit that has all of your pieces does not help you win domination.
Correct.
I mean, they can Voltron out at the end, and go grab quarters and stuff. Like the characters can leave the unit and stuff like that. That'd be one way to deal with it. But one gigantinormous unit that has all your points in it to deny it from the opponent doesn't automatically win you domination. So that's not insignificant. This has been the most game-changing one we've seen so far.
For sure. So the next one, strategic locations. Do you want to read through this?
Sure. Controlling key points of the field of battle is vital for success in war. That's a fair point. To represent this, the strategic locations X may be used as a secondary objective. If so, a number of objective markers equal to the number shown in brackets, shown here as X, are placed on the battlefield as shown opposite. So I suppose that just means that TO or you guys, the players before the games, determine how many objectives are being used. Objective markers should be represented by a miniature diorama occupying a 40 millimeter round base. Objective markers are a type of battlefield decoration, as described on page 271 of the Warhammer of the rulebook, and they can represent many things, from wells offering fresh water to thirsty warriors, or treasure troves of promising wealth to victorious commanders, from messengers carrying vital information to spies hoping to escape with precious secrets. Oh, how lovely was that? So yeah, they're not just little tokens on the ground. Although you can move over them. So 5D terrain here is important. Basically, it needs to be flat. You need to be able to get on top of it. But it can also be pretty. Placing objective markers. Objective markers are placed.
Can I just say also, I'm in love with this because at this stage, my battlefield now looks like I have a piece of, let's say I'm playing Chaos Dwarfs. I have a ruinous kind of like fire pit in the middle. I have a baggage train of, again, cabbages, probably. That's what Chaos Dwarfs
Only
carry.
Cabbages.
Or some like unpaid workers. And then
interns.
Yeah, some interns. And then I've also now got up to 4 little dioramas of other little bits on 40 mil bases on the board. And that's evocative as hell.
That's lovely.
Sorry.
Yes. You painted a picture with words, and I was enjoying being there for a minute. But now I'm back on this podcast. So placing objective markers, we did that, right? No. Objective markers are placed after the battlefield has been set up, but before deployment begins, but may never be placed within 3 inches of a terrain feature or straddling a low linear obstacle. If necessary, move the terrain by the smallest possible amount to allow the objective marker to be placed. So the placement of the objective marker supersedes the placement of terrain.
Yeah. So you just put them out first, and this is how it looks. Because the missions will just say that if you're going to do Strategic locations 2, this is where the objectives will look. They'll be top and bottom. If you can do 3, they're across the center. If you can do 4, it's 2 and 2. I really like both 2 and 4. I also don't hate 3. I don't hate 3, but what I like about it is like your little infantry or missile unit can just sit at objective 1 at the back. And I'm like, that's fine. Yeah, and I'm going to sit at 1 at the back, so we're even Stevens. If we're playing with 4 of them, okay, now I've got to go move out pretty wide, truthfully. And if I'm playing with a piece of terrain in the center, and don't forget these objectives you can stand on, so they're not going to stop you moving around. But if there's a piece of terrain in the center, well, now I kind of want to fight in the middle, at the flanks, in my deployment. I got to try and hit your baggage train. There's a lot of stuff happening on that board as it looks, while we're also moving our armies around, which I think is quite fun. But we're not finished yet because we've got controlling objective markers.
So as a TO, how would you determine which one of those to use? Because immediately in my head,
on the mission. It says it on the mission. It says if
the mission itself describes.
Yeah. So when you get to a mission, it says this mission uses strategic locations 3.
Got it.
And obviously,
if you use it, okay.
Obviously, you could just run an event where, like, hey, we're all playing. Every mission is going to use strategic locations 4, because the one it says on the missions is the suggested. It's like you can. We suggest using strategic locations 3, but do whatever the hell you want. Like,
my immediate idea, and I have no idea if it's good, was to roll a D3.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't likely just go for 4, because it's
4 at all times.
Yeah, I would potentially. I mean, there's the option I would either say 3 or 4. I think 4 produces like some wide play, which is pretty good, especially good for evasive armies. Or like, again, we're looking for units that don't really have jobs. We sometimes tend to find like light cav, kind of skirmish cav, not necessarily got big jobs in the game. They're fast. They can go jump on these things. They can run away. There's a little job for them. To go stand out, book up jobs. But let's do controlling objectives.
Yeah, sure. At the end of each turn, an objective marker can be controlled by a single core unit that is within 6 inches of it that has a unit strength of 10 or more. That is not fleeing, not stupid. If 2 or more eligible units are within 6 inches of the objective marker, the closest unit controls it. If 2 or more eligible units that are equally close to an objective marker, the unit with the higher unit strength controls it. Awesome. However, if 2 or more eligible units are equally close to an objective marker and both have the same unit strength, the objective marker is, quote, contested, and neither unit controls it. For each objective marker a player controls at the end of each player's turn, they win a bonus of 30 victory points.
Each player's turn is nuts. So that's 120 points per player turn, 240 over a round. Okay, nearly 1,000 points on the tabletop.
I see. Yeah, because it's each objective marker. So got it. So there's up to 120 points available each player turn, 240 a turn. Yeah, that's a big deal.
1,000 points over the game.
Another reason why you might consider more or less of these, like how much of an impact do you want to have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think encouraging, I mean, what I like the equality in, obviously, like, if you're going to do strategic locations, like, cool, I camp middle, you camp middle. You're like, okay, fine. That's what we're doing. We're just staying here forever. And put my baggage train next to it, that's fine. But that's a juicy target. If you decide you're going to just sit there, I'm going to sit there, that's okay. Then you're going to get table quarters. There's so many things now to consider in addition. Maybe doing all of it at the same time to overload it, but maybe also it really adds strategy to the game. Like,
so, and also, I'm just going to throw this out there. Suddenly, there's a job for, you know what? A template weapon that lobs a rock or a mortar shell over and can kill toughness 3 bullshit models that are supposed to just be standing there. So if you only bring 10 and you're like, no problem, I'm just going to hide. Well, now there's a reason to have indirect shooting to just punk them away.
Yeah, and I did a terrain map last night, and I intentionally set the terrain out so you could never have a unit that was hiding behind a bit of terrain and scoring the objective.
Oh, right? Cool.
So that, like, you've got to be out in the open if you want to hold it, which I think is super fair. So those are all the secondary objectives to kind of clear us up. And it's a lot. I won't lie, and I'm sure there's some people saying, hey, this is a lot, but I'm pumped. There are so many new ways for me to score points, maybe even ways, if you use all of them in conjunction, to design some crazy lists that are just going to hold points, score stuff, be evasive, blunt force trauma. I'm going to come and kill your shit and eat your cabbages. It's really fascinating, I think.
I mean, kill everyone still applies.
But
right?
that works
So
in
like,
every game.
so yes, but I mean, like, kill everyone is still a problem because, again, you don't want these to just be win more, right? So if you just go max output, you just. But that's the thing is like even if you do have the killiest things in the game and your goal is to kill everyone and everything, well then now your opponent's got to be thinking like, okay, how do I not get killed?
Yeah.
You know, so like there's still counterplay, right? And the opportunity to score points and do stuff and not necessarily just be win more. Cool.
So those are the secondary objectives. Next up, one last thing before we start looking at the missions are the secret objectives that they've also given us as well. These are a range of additional objectives that players try to achieve for additional victory points. The twist is that not all secret objectives are achievable by every army or in every game, and with each passing round, the players must choose a single objective from a diminishing pool. When writing their muster list for a match play event at which secret objectives are in use, each player must choose a list of 6 secret objectives from the 12 that we're about to look at. At the start of each game, a player must choose one of their secret objectives and make a note of it on a piece of paper, which should then be placed face down at the edge of the battlefield in sight of their opponent. At the end of the game, when calculating victory points, both players reveal their secret objectives. If either player has achieved their objective, then they win VP bonus as stated in the secret objectives description. After each round, when submitting results to the scorekeeper, each player must also record which secret objectives they did, blah, 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 blah. So, effectively, have 12, choose 6, try and achieve one each time. You're playing at an event. You've now got to do all these fun things. They're not super easy. You can give an award out for the person who does the most secret objectives. You can lose your game, but still do your secret objective and feel like a champ. Fun stuff.
Sick. And I'm immediately going to be reaching out to Paul McKelvey at Best Coast Pairings to include a little drop-down tab so that you can mark exactly which secret objective you used when you score your game. Sick.
Sick. All right, so first one, secret objective cards. So these are the secret objectives. Let's talk about them. First one, hold the line. To fulfill this objective, you must have 2 of your units, each with a unit strength of 10 or more, not counting units that are fleeing or have succumbed to stupidity, within your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the battle, and you score a measly 75 VP. Okay, so not necessarily game-changing amount of VP.
Okay.
Overwhelming firepower. To fulfill the objective, you must destroy an enemy unit in the shooting phase that began that phase with a unit strength of 10 or more. If you fulfill the objective, you win a bonus of 75 VP.
Okay. All right.
Nice. Cut off their retreat. To fulfill this objective, you must have one of your units with a unit strength of 15 or more, not counting units that flee or succumb to stupidity, within 6 inches of the longest edge of the battlefield edge, with your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the battle. And if you fulfill this objective, another 75 VP.
Okay. So a big unit, one big unit at the other side of the table. Okay.
Yeah. Fire the artillery. To fulfill this objective, you must cause an enemy unit to fail a panic test and flee as a result of being shot at by a unit whose unit type is War Machine.
That's sweet. Okay, cool.
Captured colors. You fulfill this
Hell Cannon. I think the Hell Cannon suddenly has a job.
Wrong. Don't give it a job. It actually is quite high unit strength, so you could potentially sit in here like your baggage train. That's funny.
Yeah, but he'll go do something stupid.
Yeah, he'll kill it.
God bless you, you big dumb idiot. Hell Cannon. Capture colors.
You fill this objective by capturing enemy standards or trophies of war. 2 enemy standards, you win a bonus of 50 VP. 3 enemy standards, 100 VP. 4 or more enemy standards with a bonus of 150 VP. Obviously, massive weakness in that is...
Well, people don't take standards already because they give up VP, and now they potentially give up a lot more VP.
Bounty Hunter. To fulfill this objective, you must kill the most expensive unit in your opponent's army. Units that have flown off the battlefield or are fleeing at the end of the battle count towards it, and it's 75 VP. So what do you think of them? What do you think of them before we look at page 2? What do you think of them so far?
Fun, but not like, again, like, I don't even know if you're... I mean, to be able to achieve some of these, you're going to have to obviously design your list a certain way. I like that the VP amount is escalating, and I'm curious to know what happens when we get to the second page.
Okay.
So far, we have how many that are worth 75?
We have 5, 6. No, sorry, 3, yes.
3,
4,
and then 4? Okay. So, and then we've got 1 at 100, 1 at 150. Okay.
My thing is that it maybe will change how you write your list a little bit. And I think that's kind of fun. Because anything that does that, I think, is fun.
There's another 6, though. Let's go.
Another 6. So, do you want to read these?
Sure. To fulfill this objective, you must kill all of your opponent's characters. Any enemy characters that have fled off the battlefield or that are fleeing at the end of the battle count towards fulfilling this objective. You win 150 for that. That's called assassination. That's fun.
But that's because you choose, right? Like I've got my deck of 6. I play someone with a bunch of dwarf characters. I'm like, no, not assassination.
Not using this one.
But next game, maybe.
Yeah, and there might be armies in the meta that have characters that will probably be there that are easy to punk. So you have this back pocket. Use it in that matchup. Very cool. Magical Domination. To fill this objective, you must successfully cast 3 spells during a single turn without having them dispelled by your opponent and without suffering a miscast during the same turn. You fulfill this, you win the 75. Easy. All right, cool.
This used to be an Age of Sigmar mission. We used to call it playing with yourself. And just a wizard just in a corner, gooning away. Sorry.
Duel of the Kings. To fulfill this objective, you must kill your opponent's general in a challenge.
Nice.
If you fulfill this objective, you win a bonus of 200 VP plus the 100 for killing a general. That one's fun. I'm going to call it fun because other people are going to be like, Cathay's just fresh on everyone's mind, so it's a sensitive topic. Yeah. But Miao Ying's not out yet, so don't worry about it, guys. But Duel of Kings is sick. I think that's fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Calming of the Winds. You fulfill this objective once each. You fill this objective once each time you dispel one of your opponent's spells with a fated dispel. Each time you fulfill this objective, you win a bonus of 50 victory points. Once each time you dispel one of your opponent's spells with a fated dispel.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's just a dice game, baby.
Well,
let's just get hot.
Yeah, it's fated. Just keep fated it.
So anytime your opponent rolls low, and like doesn't get something casted off, you go fated. Assuming you got a level 4, you can choose to use the fated.
That's quite a lot of VP potentially there.
Yes, indeed there is. Well, 6 times 50.
Yeah. That's still 300.
Whatever number that is. It's impossible to calculate. Beast Hunter. To fulfill this objective, you must kill all units in your opponent's army whose troop type is monster. Any enemy units whose troop type is monster that have fled the battlefield or that are fleeing at the end of the battle count towards fulfilling this objective. If you fulfill this objective, you get a bonus of 100 VP. Kill all of your monster. I would have loved even like a 51 for each monster. We had one like that called Monster Hunter. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. Might be a bit difficult, but again, awesome. Wizard Bane. To fulfill this objective, you must successfully dispel 3 of your opponent's spells in a single turn without being outclassed in the art during the same turn. If you fulfill this objective, you win 75.
You can keep trying it, right? You can just be there, just like that magic. And we've all played that game, that magic phase where you or your opponent has just shut down every spell. You're like, this sucks. And especially if you build that into your list, like +1 to dispel, and now you're like more reliably doing it. I would say that they're not very impactful. They're generally hard or kind of like part of what you're doing anyway, like Duel of Kings, although that's still a challenge-based one. So, and I think rather than it being a core element of how you design your list or play the game, it's a fun additional element of like, did I do a Duel of Kings? Did I do a Calming of the Winds? It's a fun thing for someone to do in their brain, and I like it. Yeah.
No, I've got absolute. There's no reason I think not to use it every tournament. It's great. It's fun.
Okay, so now we know generally how a game is set up. We know that the tournament organizer decides which secondary missions. If you're doing secret stuff, we know what victory points to score and where we're going to score them. So now there's the missions, and if there's any additional rules that are going to be seen there to look through. So the first scenario, now we've got Upon the Field of Glory, which is just your basic standard game.
Basic. This is your open battle. Here we go.
Yeah, open battle scenario has no special rules. Oh, your tournament organizer will also determine the game length and how long it will last for. It's just always in my game's going to be six turns, and that's it. And then the secondary objectives. So in this, the scenario may include baggage trains, the special features, the domination and or strategic locations, 2, 3, or 4. So you get the choice on how you as the TO want to set that up. Secondary objectives. So you get, I think that's all of them. Is that all of them? I don't think any's missing there. So, and I've mapped this out and it's quite fun. You get like the centerpiece, you get the objectives, the special features around, the special feature in the middle, the strategic locations around the side. You put like a baggage train in the middle. That's already an incredibly fun game. And what I like about it is it's already 3 different games. It's special features in, it's a secondary strategic locations 2, 3, or 4, as well as everything else you can add to it. So actually, I love what they've done here. They've not given us like 24 mission sets, each with its own unique weird rule. Instead, they've said, hey, we've got a bunch of thematic rules you add on. I think that's a much better way to do it.
What they've given us essentially is a bunch of different deployment maps, which is kind of how we've been modding it for the most part anyway. Like you could play the game right now, essentially open battle, line up against one another, and go and just score your victory points, and then just change the deployment zones. It's already entertaining. So just focusing the mission as mostly just the deployment zones in the map, I think is fantastic. I think it's a great way to do it, and giving the TO the discretion on how to do the secondary objectives. Cool. Nothing to say. No notes.
Okay, next one. King of the Hill. This one is actually super fun.
I really like this one. So on this one, in either case, ensure. So basically, there's a hill obviously in the middle, measuring no more than 12 by 18 inches. And if we can just scroll up a little bit, I'll read about deploying the hill. Thank you. Once the battlefield has been set up, the winner of a roll-off chooses a deployment zone A or B. Once deployment zones have been chosen, the winner roll-off deploys the first unit. Players deploy their armies using alternating method. Sorry, I didn't need to read that. One thing to, so yeah, basically hill in the middle. Now we'll go to the scenario special rules. The hill. In this scenario, the hill can be controlled at the end of each turn by a single core unit that is within 9 inches of its center, the center of the battlefield, that has unit strength of 10 or more, that is not fleeing, and that is not succumbed to stupidity. So that's a core unit in the middle of the battle line. Tricky. If 2 or more eligible units are within 9 inches of the center of the hill, the closest unit controls it. If 2 or more eligible units are equally close to the center of the hill, the unit with the higher unit strength controls it. Or if 2 or more eligible enemy units are equally close to the center of the hill and both have the same unit strength, the hill is contested. Neither unit controls it. You can't use Vanguard in the scenario. That's pretty cool. And this is interesting. The player who controls the hill at the end of each player's turn wins a bonus of 100 victory points.
Yeah. So but most of the time you'll both just have units next to it, so no one's going to control it. Like that's the kind of TLDR. What I like about this though, secondary objectives.
It's unit strength determined, isn't it?
Unit strength controls it. Oh, the unit with the highest unit strength. Yeah, sorry. So your core unit strength being higher is much better for this. So again, really reinforcing. You need some core units. You need a high strength. If you put this already in like a tournament pack, immediately there's some armies like dwarfs gonna love this. They go hold that hill. You can add to this though, which I think is really cute, where the scenario may include baggage trains or a special feature. So you can put a special feature on top of the hill because it's in the middle.
That's true.
Right?
That's true, yes.
And then it becomes impassable, right? And that's awesome. That's an awesome addition to make something really, really fun.
Yeah, that is cool. It also adds the fact that like even if you peek over the hill, there's something you can't see over once you're at the top. So like right now, like the second you toe onto that hill, everyone can see you. If you have a special feature on top of the hill, that's pretty dope. Also, who doesn't fucking love the thought of that? Yeah. A hill with like some cool like statue or like monolith or sick.
Yeah. No domination on this.
Yeah.
So that's not part of it. None of the objectives are going to be on the other objectives are going to be on the board. So like very, very different to already the first one. Progressive scoring, core unit focused, list changing, writing a list that plays well across all these, very difficult.
Baggage trains in effect. Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Next up, we have drawn battle lines. So scenario 3. This is the one I'm going to FAQ for sure. So we've got diagonal deployment. We love that. That's cool. And then the TLDR is it says that you got to roll against your opponent. And if either of you roll a 1, both of you have to put a unit in reserve.
But it's only cavalry or infantry.
It's only cavalry or infantry, but I just hate missions that do that. I'm just happy that there's a triangle deployment. I'm happy to skip the rest. And then there's a reserve special rule as well. And the secondary objectives are, this scenario may include strategic locations 3, which is kind of interesting because it would cut across the line. So that's quite fun. And include domination, which I think is really interesting from deploying in the corner, and or baggage trains secondary objectives. So I like this one a lot because of the deployment zone and also the secondary objectives you can take. There's no special feature in the middle, but there will be 3 objectives. I like this one a lot.
But you don't. So what do you think of the reserves rule?
which is reserves are not deployed at the start of the battle. Instead, they can enter play during compulsory moves subphase of any turn the controlled players. When they arrive, reserves may enter the battlefield reinforcements. So you don't roll? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is, so like on a roll of 1,
I'm skipping that.
So this is what I would suggest as an easy fix for that. Just rather than cutting it, I would suggest that you can simply come in on your first turn, and also allow them to not have to come in on the long edge. So allow them to come in on your short edge of the deployment zone. So that way you're allowed to come in, and I think that alone makes it a little bit more interesting. Being able to come in on turn 1, because you can't charge when you come in off of reserves. That's the thing. One of the main reasons this sucks so bad is that if any of your units that roll a 1 are basically out of the game until turn 3, right? Like, because they can't come in on turn 1, they come in on turn 2, and then they can charge. So like so if you say you can come in on turn 1, but you can't charge, and you can come in on a short edge, now it's actually kind of interesting. And that's how I would fix this.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. But this is the one that's the only kind of like, womp womp in the have a conversation.
Love that deployment, by the way. Noting this deployment zone. So this is something that Oss recommended to me for use. Look how easy that is to measure. You're essentially going from one corner to the middle of the other side. So that that's like really easy to set up. This is a lot easier than your traditional Vanguard deployment. So I really do like this style of map.
Agreed. It's a good map, and also the secondary objectives make this, in my opinion, so it's great. Next up, we have close quarters, and this one's pretty spicy.
Interesting.
So the game length is whatever you decide. So you got bottleneck. It's basically Battle for the Pass or Mountain Pass, but the other way around.
Okay, the short edges of it. Okay.
Yeah, the battle is fought in a narrow mountain pass enclosed by high cliffs. Because of this, the short battlefield edges count as impassable terrain. As such, no units, including fleeing units or arriving from reserve, can leave or enter the battlefield via the short edge, as they have ethereal or fly. The scenario must include strategic locations too, which is 1 in your deployment, 1 in theirs. Secondary objectives, and may include the domination secondary objective. Now, what's really fun is when you set this up, is it's very much like I sit on mine, you sit on yours. We eyeball each other. This isn't even open battle. This is just like run in the middle and just hammer it, which is fun. That's a fun type of deployment. But then it gives you a lot of room because there's like little space at the board edge to potentially go for like domination, which, as we know, is a lot of points.
A lot of points.
So are you just going to sit? Are you going to go aggro in the middle, or are you going to spread wide? What's your plan?
Yeah.
And also,
are you going to?
You can't go off the
board. Are you going to go mess up the opponent's deployment zone to try and go get their stuff 24 inches apart? Yeah, I think that's cool. So far so great.
Love it. Do you want to take us through a chance encounter, which I love?
Absolutely. So if we look at the deployment zones, essentially that's the whole thing. It's just sort of a weird deployment zone situation. So essentially, when you roll off, you're going to pick one corner of the table, and your opponent deploys in the opposite side.
Yeah.
And that's it. You got 24 by 24. Is that right? Yeah. 24 by 24 square. No, sorry, be 36 by 24 square. There you go.
You got a quarter of the board. That's important.
Yeah, quarter. You got a quarter. You got a quarter of the board. The math's impossible. Don't ask questions. And then your maximum, you're about 18 inches apart. It's a very unusual deployment style, I think, for fantasy.
Correct.
This is a very awkward way to deploy and to try and anticipate. Again, maybe another reason why ambushers suddenly have a job, and scouts, even though you're giving up the first turn, maybe have a job.
Also, just to set FYI, if you are using like the terrain picking system, this is extra fun. Because if you don't know, you'll veto one, pick one, then you are doing that before you determine where you're even going to go on the board. So you can't, you've got less manipulation of the terrain control, which is very funny. And I like
cool.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very fun. And also, secondary objectives, special feature in the middle, great.
Yep.
Domination, board edges, and baggage trains as well.
That special feature in the middle is super interesting because, there's a 6-inch slice of impassable and blocks line of sight right in the center there. What a great place for a special feature. Love it.
That's cool, right?
Yeah. Domination and or baggage trains. Why not both? Cool.
You see what I mean? It really feels like you can just run everything and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, encirclement. Encirclement, my friend. So, go on. feel free, take us through it.
No, this is you. This is you. Go.
Okay, so the deployment zones are just, you've got a little gap either side, which is fun.
I love this I love this offset deployment. It's in my pack right now. It's fantastic.
You could do some flanking, which we love. You just choose which one you're going to deploy in, which is fine. There's no special rules. However, you can play strategic locations for second baggage trains and also special feature. So again, just a slightly different deployment zone, running those extra points on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say, I've been consistently running only 3 missions now for 18 months, and I don't think people at my events, at least, have found themselves to be overly bored. I think the inclusion of all these secondary things and the secret missions, as well as a more comprehensive set of deployment maps with not weird, janky, silly scenery rules, is an incredible place for the game to be, especially when we potentially get some FAQ stuff going on in the future. We've just had a ton of arcane journals. I feel crazy good about this. I think it's really good.
There's we have 7 minutes, and there's one of the there's actually 3 more missions, and they are the doubles missions. There's one of them I want to call out and I just want your take on it. Okay, so this is for doubles events, but it's called double envelopment. So it's assuming that in a 2,000 point army you have 2 1,000 point armies. So I would suggest in a match play event you just split your army in half. And what I think is really cool about this is that you deploy your army in your deployment zone, which is actually super close, and then your reserves come in behind your opponent. So it is just kind of wacky, and I think could be very interesting. And it does have obviously options for baggage trains, special features, domination, and the strategic locations, all of them. But this one is just one I wanted to call out because it is one of the only sort of like missions that they have here. The other 2 doubles missions that they have, don't just ignore them. They are just all they are different deployment zones. They're perfectly usable as match play if you get bored of the other 6. I think this mission is kind of neat, and I think could be fun. That's it.
I don't agree at all. I don't want anything to do. I don't want anything to do with that. Okay, leave that alone. All right. So
says the man who made an entire event about rivers, and this is too much.
People love too much. People love the rivers. They were dipping their toes
people like
in.
a little. Don't kink shame. Maybe people like being double enveloped. You never know.
It's true. So what do you think of the match play guide, our first one for the old world? And everyone in the comments below, let's know what you think.
I like it way more than I ever thought I possibly would. I'll say that. I never, and I based on what I had heard before, I was not hopeful. And now that I've actually gotten to see this for the first time, I am tremendously hopeful. I think the army composition stuff, taken in a vacuum, which is mostly what we got to hear and see, taking that in a vacuum was not really all that super meta moving or impactful. But as we just discovered there, even if we play these things scored the way they are out of the box, it's going to change how you think about winning a game.
Yeah, that's really important. Changing list writing, great. Making more stories on the tabletop, great. More opportunity to hobby and create a thematic space to play on, also great. Not having a ton of terrible missions that are just suck it, great. And then producing more storytelling devices and just having more fun on the tabletop and giving some guys some jobs in this economy, great. Okay.
Make games. And you know what? It was Games Workshop. I was worried that those jobs would not be well paid enough to be worth it. Interestingly here, well compensated in some cases for doing some boring jobs, standing around doing things. Core units get good jobs. Also, a lot of core units are vulnerable, so that gives your already good units jobs of keeping them alive. It provides a lot more reason to move around the table. Gives a really good reason to play on a 6x4 rather than the smaller version of the table, which I was starting to lean towards. Like, if the game continued as was, like why have all that space? It kind of just made it like there's just a lot of wasted space. I think this makes 6x4s even more useful, way more interesting. I say overall, I'm quite pleased. Only thing I would say is that there's also some, I think, Ninth Age influence there, because as we know, I made my current mission pack based off of Ninth Age. One thing I do enjoy about Ninth Age is how they actually take the secondary and tertiary points that you score and apply them to your battle points. differential. I think that's a really cool mechanic. Don't need to use it out of the gate, but maybe it's something we get bored of and we adopt in the future. Especially if we start finding that it's just a win more situation. Then we might look at that.
I think all war games are just a win more. I think that's just, otherwise it's just a, oh wait, cool, I beat you, but you still get points. That seems silly. But like, I don't think there's a solution to that. However,
that's exactly what the guy was describing does.
Yeah,
that's okay, Rob.
We have
three future episodes now. Incredible.
Yeah, I'll call someone else. So this has been really fun. I hope everyone's enjoyed the video. It's there's been some really cool stuff here. Thanks to Val. It's been great. Let everyone in the comment leave a bunch of comments. Tell us what you think about it. Thanks for watching.
Get excited.
We'll see you all soon. Goodbye.